I'm very pleased to be here with you once again. Karen Frankel, of course. This video is called Drawing Rules. Yeah! Okay, not really in that fashion. What about drawing rules? Many people are concerned about how good their drawings are with reference to some of the rules that I've given out. And every time I do a demonstration, I give you certain information about that particular subject. So if I'm talking about thumbnails, the rules of thumbnails are da 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 da. And they are my rules. They're not even the rules. There's no such thing as the rules. I can remember I saw a book once in a bookshop that said, the definitive book on everything art, about art. And I went, seriously, do you think that you've done every single thing about art in your book? Well, that's a bit of a cheeky statement. So that's what I want to address today. What's going on with drawing rules? What's going on with the things that I tell you? What's going on with things that are in my book? This is the way to do it, or this is the best way to do it. All of those sorts of things can get quite confusing. So I have launched into this. As you can probably tell, I am extremely passionate on this subject. If you don't watch any video on drawing except this one, that's what I would love. Obviously, I want you to watch all of my videos, but I am extremely passionate and forthright on this particular subject. It is my opinion, okay? I know lots of you, if not most of you, if not all of you, love me as much as I love you. And I know that I have lots of teaching experience. I've seen lots and lots of students with all levels of drawing ability come through. However, my explanations, I can't even think of the right words, they're not gospel. They are not the absolute in knowledge, and that's it, all you need to know. I don't claim that. I claim a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, and that is borne out by teachers that I've been to, workshops that I've attended, not given, books that I've read. So my knowledge is not only one that is from experience, my own experience, it is also based on what I learn. It's one of the nicest things about teaching is that I learn from my students. So if a student says, I did this, I discovered this, I go, oh, seriously, I'm going to share that. Or if I go to a workshop and I learn from another teacher, another way of doing things, I'm always very, very eager to share that. So my knowledge and experience is based on lots and lots of different things, and I do not claim to know everything. I also know that my opinions differ to the opinions of other teachers in some respects. For example, many of my students will tell you when I first started teaching that thing there, which is an eraser. Of course, you can see it's an eraser. That was a big no-no in my classes. And over 15 or 17 years of teaching, I've gotten a bit more mellow about that, but there are reasons why I say use an eraser or not. So the rule, lots of inverted commas going on today, the rule about not using an eraser is an information rule. It's a don't use an eraser if you are getting very precious about your work and you're erasing because you think everything is wrong and you are judging your work as bad, and that's the reason why you're erasing and you're correcting every single line that you put down. That's a good reason not to use an eraser. So yes, it's a rule, rather err on the side of don't use an eraser rather than using it, but it's for a reason. So I like to think of rules as being information for a particular reason rather than a blanket, do not do this. Please don't take it as the only way. Explore as many avenues as you like. And if you find somebody saying something different, it's not wrong and me right. It's just different. First thing to remember, rules are just information. Certainly rules about drawing. Obviously, rules of the road are information, but the consequences if you don't obey those rules are pretty serious. Drawing's not so dangerous. Second thing about rules, and this is something that I have experienced in my life, that I'm going to allude to something a little bit more serious now. As part of my promotion for my book, particularly in this time of COVID, when we're all under a bit of mental pressure, we all need a little bit of joy, we all need a bit of kindness, and we need to be kind to ourselves. And yes, of course we need to be kind to other people, but we need to be kind to ourselves. And if you don't already know, I have mentioned it only very briefly. About 20 years ago I suffered a mental breakdown. And one of the reasons for that breakdown, there were many things that came together. But one of the reasons was I was trying to be too perfect. I had to be a perfect single mum at that stage. I had to do everything perfectly. Not only did I have to do everything perfectly, I had to do it on my own. And I didn't ask for help, because if I asked for help, that wasn't being perfect. And eventually my body said, well, you know what? If you are not going to change, I am going to stop you from functioning particularly well, and I'm going to make you change. And it was the breakdown I had to have to rebuild myself. And I really don't like the word breakdown, but it is a very good explanation of the way that I felt. I was broken into pieces and had to rebuild myself in a much healthier way. Why am I getting all serious about that? Because there was one word that I tried to get rid of in my vocabulary, and more than that in my head, and that was should. You should be able to do this. You should be able to be perfect, cook a perfect meal, run around, drop the kids, but whatever it is. There were unreal expectations that I was putting on myself, and that's the should word. And the reason I'm getting serious about that is to that should thing, that expectation that we put on ourselves is not particularly helpful. So now to lighten up again and get back to drawing. Drawing is meant to be something that we are taking pleasure in. There shouldn't be, shouldn't use that word. It's there again. I don't need to use that word. You don't need to have those expectations of yourself of what you should be able to do. It's a nonsense. You are drawing what you are drawing. You're learning from me, you're learning from all different avenues, hopefully. You are looking at other people's work. I can see how you're all learning from each other on the Get Drawing group. So there is no need to have an expectation of yourself. There's no I must do this or I mustn't do this. There's no I have to do this, I have to do it that way and not that way. Okay? So now you know why I'm so passionate, why it absolutely hits a nerve for me when we start talking about what we must do and what we should do. And there's my dog, and I wish she wasn't barking quite like that. When you are drawing, this also applies to life. Sorry, it's quite a good metaphor for life, but we'll talk about drawing. When you are drawing, do what is right for you for that particular moment. Okay? So draw to the level, draw the best you can in that particular moment. Which means if you're fed up and you've had a shitty day and you just want to relax and you feel like drawing, but you can't be asked about the rules and do I have to remember proportion again, and it's all going to be too hard. Nah, I'm going to chuck drawing. It's just going to be too hard, and I'm going to expect myself to do it perfectly, and I'm going to expect it to look good, and etc., etc. If you're in that kind of mood, then don't do that kind of drawing. So just do some doodling. And then if you want, pick up a colored pencil. If you don't want, don't pick up a colored pencil. Just color in that and then put some stripes in there. It does not matter. You're doing this for your pleasure. Yes, I know that you are also doing this to get better at it. If you're in the mood, then put yourself under a tiny bit of pressure to follow whatever it is that you're following. But every time you draw, I like Zentangles too, Leonore says. Yes, absolutely. So I think I've done a video on Zentangles. I can't remember if it was a Tuesday one or not. Zentangles are these little patterned drawings. It doesn't matter. Okay. Even if you're not doing drawing from your head and doodling, and you actually do want to draw something that is in front of you, or you want to go into the travel exercise, the travel course that I've put online, and you want to do that, don't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up about it. Draw for the pleasure, learn, and draw with intent. I love that word, okay? Do something with intention. So my intention is to learn, and I want to practice my coloring in, my shading, so I might just gently shade something in. My intent is to learn something from Karen today. I'm going to watch the travel video, and I'm going to copy her. And I'm going to draw that boat, and oh no, it looks terrible, and why can't I draw what Karen draws, and oh, I'm not trying to make fun of you. I'm making fun of the concept, and I am absolutely a culprit that as adults we expect so much of ourselves. If you can't do it to your satisfaction, there's a reason. Either your expectation is a little bit higher than it might need to be, or you haven't done it for very long. It's the first time you've done it. Give yourself a break. What is the point of beating yourself up? Okay, learn, but learn within your capacity. Get slowly better at it. I was trying to think of an analogy where we do something and we're not worried about the result. One of the ones that I came up with was singing, okay? So I don't sing in the shower. I know that's the cliche, but do you sing in the shower? The place I sing mostly is in the car, because I've got my music on, either my favorite radio station, or I've got my own music on, and I sing. There's a saying, there's a fridge magnet that goes, sing like nobody's listening and dance like nobody's looking. Well, draw like nobody's looking, including you, okay? Try not to set that expectation up that every single time you draw, you need or you should be better than you are, please. Okay? I know that you want to improve your drawing, and there's nothing wrong with being I'm trying to think of the right word. There's nothing wrong with wanting to improve your proportions, for example. So practice your proportions. Don't be worried that you can't do them. You'll get better at doing them when you practice them more. It's pretty much as simple as that. But don't worry if they're wrong. That doesn't help your case. It just upsets you, okay? Learn from what you're doing wrong. The other thing I wanted to point out is the type of materials you've got. Sometimes people have said to me, especially from the Tuesday challenges, oh, I haven't got the right materials. I don't mind, I don't care, and I mean that in the nicest way possible, what material you use. I'm teaching you a technique, so yes, if I'm teaching you about willow charcoal, then yes, it would be useful if you had willow charcoal. But most of the time I'm teaching you a technique about observation and drawing, which doesn't, it is not determined by the material that you're using. I did a workshop with a well-known West Australian artist who teaches at university, and I did a drawing workshop with him, and in fact I own one of his drawings. His name is Andy Quilty. And he told us, in fact, I think this is the brand he uses. This is Lyra Art Design. It's not a particularly expensive pencil. And he loved using a cheaper pencil because he wanted to get scratches from the wood. And he wanted to have nothing I'm doing is making this break. He wanted to have that broken. So using different materials is sometimes quite a pleasure. You find out about it. Don't worry about it if you haven't, got the right sharpener or the right eraser and all of those things. Just go for it. What about if you're angry? Are you allowed to do an angry drawing? Of course you are. It doesn't all have to be pretty. You can take your pencil like this and grind into the paper. And as soon as I did that, I thought, oh, I'm probably making marks underneath there, which I am, and that was on top of something else. Wonder what happens if I shade over those marks. Is that great? So I immediately turned it into a creative element. One way of doing something that you've learned from me, or that you've learned from anyone else, might not be an appropriate way to draw something else. So all of these, doing harsh things might be appropriate for a stormy painting, but of course it's not appropriate for a gentle, beautiful flower picture, something like that. I want to comment on a couple of the rules that I've been teaching you and show you how they are applicable or not applicable, and why they are there. So I said earlier that rules are there for a particular reason, for information. So when I say to you, don't draw hard lines on things, because it doesn't reflect reality, because there aren't hard lines on things. So don't get into the habit of drawing hard lines on things, because when you put your tone on, we don't want to see those hard lines. Okay, so that's a rule in inverted commas, that I often give you. It is only a rule if you want to draw realistically, if you want to show something with 3 dimensions. There are millions of artists and drawings with strong lines on. They're not all wrong, they're just different, okay? Even strong lines can depict something in 3 dimensions if you give it an illusion. In fact, there's one in my book that is a terrible half guitar, half pear. There's an exercise in my book about on line drawing, about drawing a line where you see the shadow and you want to depict the shadow, and then you have a soft line. So there's another way you can draw a line going against the rule of don't draw hard lines, because it does something else, okay? So if you want to draw realistically, there are no hard lines around us. There are plenty of realistic drawings of portraits, for example, and they're full of lines and they're beautifully realistic. If we use mark making, mark making being what I'm doing now, and we use those marks to depict shadow, those marks are not realistic. They're not like that in reality, but it's still showing the realism of a shadow. So even me saying, don't put hard outlines on when you want to talk, when you want to depict something realistically, doesn't always count. Okay, so it's only a rule for a particular result. The one that got me thinking about on Tuesday was one of the people, we were drawing in pen, and I said that it wasn't necessary to put stuff in the background like that. And it was all loose sketching like that. And often when you turn a pen on its edge like that, particularly if it's a graphic pen, this is a rollerball. And I said, no, it wasn't necessary to do that. And the person said, oh, I thought I always had to have a background. That was because in a previous challenge, I was talking about don't just have shadow around what you're drawing, have it go into the background. So it was for that particular reason that I was saying go into the background. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you always have to do a background. What I also said about this, and I make this point, if you make a decision to put a background in, put it in with some intention. There's that word intention again. Don't bark while you're on my lap. So make sure that these lines are going up to the edge so that it looks good. And put that in. I call it stuff. Don't have your head tell you, oh, you've got to do that. As soon as you recognize that your head says, oh, you should do this, don't. Okay? That's your yardstick. That's what should be stopping you, That's what could stop you from doing something. Is it your head telling you or yourself telling you you should do it? If that's the case, question it. And do it because you decide to do it. And the last comment, I think I said that the last one was the last one. Okay, this is really the last one. You are all artists. You all have permission. You don't even need permission, but I'm telling you, you have self-permission to do what you like. There are no rules that say you should do this or you shouldn't do that. You might join an art society, for example. We have a watercolor society in Perth, and part of the rules of their organization are that you are not allowed to work in mixed media and put your other things into your watercolors. That is a chosen rule for their society. It doesn't mean you're not allowed to do it in your watercolors. As artists, as human beings, you have a choice and you're allowed to do what you like, especially when it comes to drawing. I'm not giving you permission to go and break the law, but I think you get what I'm getting at. As drawers, as artists, as observers, as human beings doing all of that, you can do what you feel like. You can learn and follow the information that you are given. And sometimes I call them rules, or books call them rules, the rule of thirds, etc., etc. But please draw for the pleasure and don't worry about getting it perfect. So, with that all said and out of my system, thank you very much once again. Karen Frankel signing out with Get Drawing, and goodbye from Smudge too. Bye-bye.